While backpacking in Vietnam, I met an American who was complaining about the traffic in Hanoi. "It's complete chaos," he exclaimed. "There are no rules. Mopeds are going everywhere. People are crossing the street whenever they want. How does anyone survive?" A local who spoke English overheard and said, "There is a system. It's a flow. You just have to understand it." The American scoffed. "A flow? No, what you need is a proper four-way intersection with traffic lights and stop signs. That's a system. This is just a city-wide game of chicken. We could fix this whole country's traffic problem in a month with some good old American civil engineering." I was a ski instructor in the French Alps. One of my clients was a man from California who was an avid surfer. He was struggling to learn how to ski. After falling for the 10th time, he stood up, brushed the snow off and said, "You know, the problem with this sport is the mountain. It's too unpredictable. The snow conditions change, it's steep, there are trees, it's an uncontrolled environment. What you guys need to do is build a ski resort on a huge, man-made, perfectly sloped hill with artificial snow. You could control the conditions perfectly. It would be safer, more efficient, and way more fun." I just stared at him, not having the heart to tell him that's called a bunny slope. An American company acquired our small software firm in Dublin. The new CEO flew in from Chicago for a town hall meeting. He stood before us and said, "I've been looking at your holiday schedule, and I'm seeing a lot of inefficiencies. You have things called bank holidays. We don't have those. In the US, we have national holidays, sure, but we work hard. We're going to streamline this. We're a global company now, and we need to operate on a 24/7 American-style work ethic. So, we'll be phasing out most of these extra days off to improve productivity." He genuinely thought he was motivating us. I was working at a high-end cheese shop in Amsterdam. An American woman asked to sample some of our aged Gouda. I gave her a piece of a beautiful, crumbly 5-year-old cheese. She chewed it thoughtfully and then said, "It's okay, but it's very strong. Do you have anything more normal? Like, do you have any of that Kraft American cheese? The individually wrapped slices. My kids just love that stuff, and I was hoping to bring them back an authentic Dutch version of it." I had to politely explain that the product she was describing was not in fact cheese, and certainly not Dutch. A young American was visiting the ancient city of Petra in Jordan. He was standing in front of the treasury, the famous facade carved into the rock. He listened to the guide explain that it was a mausoleum built in the 1st century AD. The American then asked, "Okay, I get that. But where's the rest of the building? Is this just the front door? It seems like a lot of work to carve this amazing entrance and then not build a building behind it. Did they run out of money? Or did it get destroyed in a war?" He could not comprehend that the carved facade was the entire point. My cousin is a doctor in a Swedish hospital. An American tourist came into the emergency room with a sprained ankle. After being treated, he went to the front desk and asked, "Okay, so where do I pay? Who do I give my insurance information to?" The receptionist explained that for emergency care there was no charge. The man became suspicious. "Nothing is free," he said, his voice low. "What's the catch? Is the government going to track me now? Is this how you guys get people into your socialist database? I'd rather just pay cash and stay off the grid, thank you very much." I was on a boat tour of the Galapagos Islands. The naturalist guide was explaining the delicate ecosystem and the importance of not touching the animals. An American tourist who had been trying to get a selfie with a sea lion asked, "Why are all the animals so lazy? They just lie around all day." At the San Diego Zoo, the animals are much more active and entertaining. Don't you guys have like trainers or handlers who can make them do tricks for the tourists? It would really enhance the visitor experience. An American manager was transferred to our office in Mumbai. On his first day, he was confused by the dabawalas, the men who deliver hot lunches from people's homes to their offices. He watched them in fascination and then called a meeting. "I've had a revolutionary idea," he announced. "This Dabbawala system is incredibly inefficient. We should create an app for it. We can optimize the routes, add a rating system and take a small percentage. We could call it Tiffinly or Dabba Dash. We'll disrupt the whole industry." He was completely oblivious to the fact that this complex human-powered system has been working with near-perfect efficiency for over a century. I was working at a cafe in Iceland when an American tourist came in shivering. "Why is it so cold in here?" he asked. I pointed to the thermostat, which was set to a comfortable 20 70 degrees. He looked at me, then at the window, where a blizzard was raging. "No, I mean the country," he said. "Why is it called Iceland if it's covered in ice? It seems like a major marketing mistake. You should rebrand. Call it Volcano Land or Northern Lights Country. Something that sounds more appealing. Iceland just makes people think of being cold." An American family was visiting a traditional Maasai village in Kenya. After watching a ceremonial dance, the father approached the village elder. "I love what you've got going on here," he said. "The culture, the authenticity, it's fantastic. But have you ever thought about franchising? You could replicate this village experience in other locations, maybe even build one in a theme park in Florida. You could create a global brand. I have some contacts in venture capital who would be very interested in scaling this operation." I was a student in a history seminar at a German university. The professor was discussing the political and economic reconstruction of post-war Germany. An American exchange student raised his hand. "I don't understand why Germany doesn't have more national pride," he said. "In America, we're proud of our history, even the complicated parts. You guys should have more flags everywhere, have military parades, and be more openly patriotic. It feels like you're constantly apologizing for your past. You need to move on and embrace a more confident American-style nationalism." The silence in the room was deafening. In a small family-owned restaurant in the Italian countryside, the owner proudly served a plate of handmade pasta to an American couple. The wife tasted it and said, "This is delicious. It's almost as good as the pasta at the Olive Garden." She meant it as the highest possible compliment. The owner, whose family had been using the same recipe for generations, simply smiled, walked back to the kitchen, and poured himself a very large glass of wine. I was on a bus in rural Peru which broke down. We had to wait a few hours for a replacement. An American backpacker on the bus became increasingly agitated. He went up to the driver and said, "This is unacceptable. In the United States we have ATA. You make one phone call and a tow truck is there in 30 minutes. What is your equivalent? Do you have a roadside assistance program? This lack of infrastructure is holding your country back. You can't have a modern economy if you can't even manage basic logistics." An American tourist was at a bullfight in Spain. He was horrified. After it was over, he found one of the matadors and began lecturing him. "This is barbaric. It's animal cruelty. In America, our entertainment doesn't involve hurting animals." The matador, a man who had been doing this his whole life, listened patiently. The American then offered a solution. "Why don't you use a mechanical bull instead, like the ones we have in our bars? It would be just as exciting for the crowd, but no animals would get hurt. It's a win-win." I was working at a hotel front desk in Oslo, Norway. An American guest came to check out and looked at his bill. "What is this 25% VAT charge?" he demanded. I explained it was the value-added tax, a standard national sales tax. He was furious. 25%. That's socialism. In my state, sales tax is 7%. This is government theft. I'm a tourist. I'm not a citizen. I shouldn't have to pay for your free healthcare and roads. I demand you remove this charge. It's against my principles as a capitalist. A group of American college students were visiting the Normandy American Cemetery in France. They were walking among the thousands of white crosses. One of them turned to his friend and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is so sad. All these guys died just to save Europe. You'd think the French would be more grateful. The least they could do is learn to speak English for us when we visit." I was working at a bike rental shop in Amsterdam. An American tourist came in, looked at the rows of classic Dutch city bikes and asked, "Where are the real bikes?" I was confused. "These are the bikes," I said. He shook his head. "No, I mean the ones with like 21 gears and thick mountain bike tires and shock absorbers. These look like they're from the 1950s. How do you get anywhere on these things? In America, our bikes are designed with technology and performance in mind. This is just primitive." He seemed genuinely disappointed that we didn't offer high-performance mountain bikes for a leisurely ride to a canal-side cafe. My uncle is a sheep farmer in the Scottish Highlands. He was mending a fence when a car of American tourists pulled over. The driver got out and said, "Excuse me, sir, we're a bit lost. We're trying to find the main highway to get to Edinburgh." My uncle gave him directions, explaining it was about a 2-hour drive. The American looked around at the vast, empty landscape of hills and lochs and said, "You know, you've got a lot of wasted space out here. This would be a perfect location for a massive suburban development. You could build thousands of homes, a strip mall, maybe a golf course. You're sitting on a real estate gold mine." I was a server in a restaurant in Quebec, Canada. An American family was seated in my section. When I greeted them with "Bonjour, hello," the father immediately said, "Oh, you don't have to do that. We're American. You can just speak American to us." I continued to use French pleasantries throughout the meal, as is customary. When he paid the bill, he told me, "Your English is very good, but you should really drop the French stuff. It's confusing for tourists, and let's be honest, it's a dying language. English is the future. You should just embrace it." An American executive was visiting our company's headquarters in Japan for the first time. He was taken to a traditional welcome dinner where everyone sat on tatami mats. He struggled to get comfortable, shifting his weight constantly. Halfway through the meal, he stood up and addressed our CEO. "With all due respect, this is incredibly inefficient," he declared. "Sitting on the floor is bad for posture and productivity. We're wasting valuable energy just trying to stay balanced. My first official recommendation is to invest in proper tables and chairs for all future meetings. It will revolutionize your workplace ergonomics." I was on a walking tour of Prague's Old Town Square. The guide was pointing out the famous astronomical clock, explaining its intricate details and 600-year history. An American in the group interrupted, "But what does it do?" The guide looked puzzled. "It tells the time, the date, the position of the sun and moon." The American cut him off. "No, I mean, does it have an app? Can I sync it with my iPhone? It's a cool-looking clock, but if it's not a smart clock, it's basically just a museum piece. It's obsolete technology." A young American couple was on a tour of a coffee plantation in Colombia. The guide was showing them how the beans are hand-picked and naturally processed. The wife asked, "So where is the flavouring department?" The guide was confused. "Flavouring?" she asked. "Yes," the woman replied. "You know, for the pumpkin spice, the caramel swirl, the French vanilla, that's the most important part. Growing the coffee is fine, but the real art is in the flavouring. Do you guys just not do that here?" I was working at a visitor centre in Banff National Park, Canada. An American tourist came to the counter, looking very concerned. "I just saw one of your park rangers," he said, "and he wasn't carrying a gun." How is he supposed to protect us from the bears and cougars without a firearm? In our national parks, the rangers are properly armed. It seems incredibly irresponsible and dangerous to have unarmed rangers in a wilderness area this large. He genuinely believed the ranger's primary job was to engage in shootouts with wildlife. An American was attending a cricket match in London for the first time. He sat there for 3 hours, completely bewildered. During a break, he turned to the British man next to him and said, "I don't get this." It's like a really slow, confusing version of baseball. And why does it take 5 days? We finished the American Revolution in less time. You guys need to streamline this game. Add some cheerleaders, a halftime show, and for God's sake, make the bats bigger so something actually happens. My friend was teaching English in a small town in Italy. One of her American students, who had been living there for 6 months, complained to her. "I don't understand why everything closes in the middle of the day here," he said. "The post office, the bank, the shops. It's so inconvenient. In America, we have a 24/7 economy. We understand that people need to get things done. This whole siesta culture is just an excuse for laziness, and it's why their economy isn't as strong as ours." I was on a flight to Cairo. The American passenger next to me was looking at a map of Egypt. He turned to me and asked, "Why did they build all the cool stuff? Like the pyramids and temples out in the middle of the desert. It's so hot and sandy. It would have made much more sense to build it all along the coast, where the weather is nicer and the tourists could enjoy the beach. It's just poor urban planning." I didn't have the energy to explain the significance of the Nile River to ancient civilization. An American was visiting the famous thermal baths in Budapest. He was looking at the beautiful historic architecture and the people relaxing in the warm water. He turned to his friend and said, "This is a great concept, but the execution is all wrong. It's basically a giant lukewarm hot tub. They should add some water jets, a lazy river, and a wave pool. You could turn this into a proper water park. They're really missing an opportunity here." I was a tour guide at Stonehenge. After explaining the mystery and the astronomical alignments of the ancient monument, an American man raised his hand. "This is all very interesting," he said, "but it seems like a lot of effort for a calendar. We have calendars on our phones now. Why haven't they moved these rocks to a museum? It seems irresponsible to leave them out here in the rain where they can get damaged. In America, we'd build a climate-controlled building around them to preserve them properly."